Good afternoon, boys and girls. Welcome to Exploring Perspectives. I'm your host, Rocky.
Erik.
And today, we have a special treat. We always have special treats.
It's always a special treat with you.
Always a special treat. And Mac is going to go ahead and turn down the volume over there. Let's start this over, shall we?
We're starting a show, right?
Yeah, we're going to start over. And, yeah, we got all kinds of stuff going on here. This is spectacular. This is going to be an echo chamber for hours. Are we good now, Mac?
Y'all might want to mute that.
We're good.
All right, we're good. Okay, let's start over.
Okay.
Hello, boys and girls.
Hi.
Welcome to Exploring Perspectives. I'm Rocky,
Erik.
and today we are going to talk about our top 10 travel tips when you're going to the UK or Ireland.
Yep.
So, first thing I want to say to you, please subscribe. If you like this video, like our channel, watch our stuff. We do these kind of things once a month. We have stuff over on Facebook. We do stuff on YouTube. So we'd love if you guys would subscribe to us.
Yep.
And remember, watch this video to the end. Today we're doing a top 10 list, and the meaty stuff is at 2 and 1.
You got it?
Yep.
Yep. Cool. So, excuse me, I'm clearing my broadcast throat here.
Yes. You'll have to excuse us today. There is a massive, massive pollen count.
Yeah.
Erik and I both have allergies. We are heavily medicated, sucking on cough drops, drinking coffee, trying to, stay up for the show here between the caffeine and the drowsiness.
Coffee and cough drops. That's
Yes, absolutely.
fantastic.
It's going to be a smorgasbord.
It's going to be quite a
Yes.
show. So essentially what we want to do is try and, with this top 10 list, is give you guys some of our preferred practical tips and insights based on past experience and a little bit of research too, as to what you want to do when you're planning out a trip and what to think about before you go, and how you might want to think in terms of staging things that you do and how you do them once you're on the ground there in your destination.
Yeah,
Right?
absolutely. And with that, let's start with number 10.
Da-da-da.
Travel to and from Scotland or Ireland or England or wherever you're going over there. First thing you want to kind of think about, what time are you going to leave? When I usually fly out of Philadelphia when I go over, and there's usually flights around 10:15 or so at night, which gets us over there with the time change around 7:30 in the morning. That way, when we land, we have the entire day to kind of do stuff. We're not wasting a day traveling.
Go ahead.
Yep. So it basically try to plan your flight for later in the day, and that way you get to actually sleep on the plane.
I was going to say, sleeping on the plane has never really worked too well for me. So I would still say that you want to make sure that your first day in country, shall we say, is going to be low key. You may be able to rest on the plane. You may not. Rocky's strategy is it is dead on. It is definitely a really good way to go. But, make sure that you're not planning on going to see your very first, your top bucket list item on day one. You're going to need a little time to acclimate and get used to some of the other technical things we're going to get into later once you're on the ground and start getting your bearings.
The other thing I would say is, speaking of the acclimation, is make sure that when you land if you leave at 10:15 at night and you land at 7:30 in the morning, make sure you stay up, stay awake.
Yeah.
Your body is going to think it's,
Yeah.
your body is going to think it's like 2 or 3 in the morning. But you want to make sure you are staying up and staying awake for the full day until 9 or 10 o'clock at night, and then force yourself to go to bed at their time.
Right.
That way you're really acclimating yourself to get your most out of your trip. Now, when you're on the plane, a couple things. One, take a neck pillow. You know that economy class, or even, the world traveler business kind of class, the lower end of the business class, is not that comfortable. You're kind of shoved in there like cattle.
Yeah.
So bring one of those neck pillows to try to get you at least reasonably comfortable to take some cat naps on the flight. Another thing to think about is your headphones. Everybody has Bluetooth headphones now, including myself. Those often will not work on airplane mode.
Right.
So you
Right.
want to make sure you have phones or headphones that'll actually plug into your phone if you're going to want to watch movies or videos or whatever on your phone during the trip.
Yeah, or just use the onboard stuff that the flight is offering.
True.
I mean, chances are you're not going to be that interested in a lot of that stuff. But in case you do want to watch the movie, Ernest's Big Adventure in Scotland, then you have headphones that will actually work with the plane.
Yeah.
So.
Anything else you can think of for the plane itself?
Not so much for the plane itself. I'm more concerned about what happens once you land. I think.
Okay.
So.
All right. So that being said, number 10 done. Now, number 9 tip for traveling to the UK is group tours or group packages. If you're the type of person who likes going on cruises, likes having your schedule kind of planned for you, likes a regimented schedule, and just wants to kind of take your foot off the gas and let somebody else take you around, show you what to look at, show you where to eat, show you what to do, and so you don't really have to think or plan the vacation too much, a group tour could be a good option for you.
Mm-hmm. It's if you're not somebody who's traveled abroad before, or if you're worried about having culture shock or anything like that, then a group tour can give you an insulative effect. It can also give you a sense of a good always having a home base to go to. There's not any planning involved. You basically everything is taken care of for you, as Rocky said. The downsides we'll get into later. We are obviously a little biased against group tours, bus tours.
Well, we can get into it a little bit now.
Package tours, yeah.
The positives are literally you don't really have to think about much. You just give your money to the travel agent or whatever, and they will give you an itinerary. They'll say, okay, on this day we're going to go to this castle. On this day we're going to visit X town. On this day we're going to go here and do this thing. So it's very, very regimented, and oftentimes you'll at least get some free time-ish, kind of like on a cruise when you pull into a particular port. They'll say, okay, you have 4 hours to explore the town. Be back here by 4 o'clock. We're leaving.
Right.
So there is a little bit of pressure that way, but it's you, for the most part, you're just kind of regimented in what you're doing. Mm-hmm. Now, the negative part is if you really, really want to see, Urquhart Castle, or you really, really want to see Loch Ness and explore, or do something that really means something to you, you are stuck within the schedule of the group.
Right.
So if free form kind of exploring, if that's something you want to do, the group tour thing might not be for you. But if you can deal with it, so to speak, then doing a group tour might be a good idea.
A package tour will give you the advantage that they will try and cram a lot into your experience for you. Yeah. And last year there was something like the tourist population of Scotland went up by like 1.8 million. Tourism is huge.
Really?
They had a banner year last year.
Nice.
So there's a lot of tours to choose from, is what that means. I mean, there are a lot of experiences to choose from if you do it yourself. But the package tours, you should be able to find one that includes a good percentage of the things that you are most interested in, like whether it's more nature-based or more history-based, certain cities, etc. Again, your time is going to be restricted, but if the tour company is a good one, they should be having guides and bus drivers and such who are going to try and give you a lot of extra information as you go and really give you the best bang for your buck. Absolutely vet any of the tour companies that you're considering. Check out Yelp, check out TripAdvisor, things like that, and make sure that they have a good reputation and make sure you're getting your money's worth. But they do a good job. For what they do, there's plenty of companies out there now that do a good job, I would say.
Yeah, and again, to your point, there's some that are more focused on the nature aspect, and there's a lot more hikes. And maybe you see Culloden Battlefield and then the Clavacairns right near there, and you do more nature, outdoorsy type things. There's others that are going to focus more on, the castles or maybe the life of Robert the Bruce and take you to, specific things that are relevant to his life and that kind of thing. So, I'll say there's a tour for everyone, probably.
I think there probably is at this point. Yeah.
Yeah, you can even do the tours of the mills, but that's not necessarily.
That's more our thing.
Yeah. Yes, exactly.
Let's go see all the fabric mills.
Yes, absolutely.
Mac?
So would you say that's a little bit better geared towards someone who's like a first timer then?
I think it's not necessarily a first timer, but an inexperienced traveler. It might be better. I think some people who are, if it's a bucket list trip that you wanted to do to Scotland, and honestly, if you're an octogenarian and you're concerned about some of the rigors of doing do-it-yourself travel, a package tour might be a perfectly good thing to do. My mother-in-law and her husband actually did one of those river cruises, actually, of the Rhine. So not Scotland, but the point is they had a floating hotel, which was at every single stop they were going to go to, and they just got on and off the boat. It was a perfectly casual very comfortable, very supported way to travel. So if you have any nerves like that, or if you have any health issues, that would be a reason to consider a package tour.
Yeah. Or if you are, I'll say this, kind of touching on some of the other stuff, pre-touching.
Go for it.
If you're nervous about driving in Scotland,
Yep.
if you're nervous about getting lost, if you're nervous about the language differences,
We'll get into
well,
that.
that's more like Europe and that kind of thing.
Right.
Or if you're just nervous about it, or you're not sure what to do, like I want to go to Scotland and see stuff, but I don't know what I want to see, then those tours would be kind of better, probably better for that type of person.
Yeah.
Who would, yeah.
They don't
Need some guidance.
You don't mind the
versus-
light touch, but you want that sense of support.
Yeah.
Yeah, as opposed to free falling into it. So,
Agreed.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. With that, number 8, places to stay. When you go over to the UK, where do you stay? There's youth hostels on the very, very budget end.
Yeah.
There's bed and breakfasts, and there's differing levels and different types of scenarios of bed and breakfasts. And there's just normal hotels. So if you're not doing the guided tour thing, because they will probably say, okay, this day we're staying in this hotel, that day that hotel. So if you're doing it on your own, where do you stay?
It's going to depend again on the kind of experience you're looking for. In my experience, a mixture is actually kind of best. If you're in an urban setting, you may decide that you want to do a hotel. There are B&Bs that operate in urban environments as well as in countrified environments, but it feels nicer. It feels more like that homey experience that goes with the landscape if you do a B&B out in the countryside. Whereas in the city, you may want some of the amenities of a hotel in terms of just the basic amenities, the level of privacy you get, the ease of coming and going, and of course the location of the hotel may be important to you also, whether you want it near a railhead, whether you want it near to the walking distance of historic sites you're interested in, things like that. When we went to England, my wife and I, we actually split our trip up in that we did a self-drive around southern England, but we ended it in London and stayed in a hotel for the last 3 or 4 days that we were there in London for a more concentrated experience there, and it was good to have that hotel as a base camp. We probably could have found a B&B that would do the same thing, but hotels just feel more efficient in a couple of ways, I suppose you could say.
Yeah, more private. When Kelly and I went to Scotland the one time, we stayed in a B&B in Edinburgh, and it was a little odd. I've never stayed in a B&B before, so the one issue with us in a B&B was it was kind of, the people were very nice, but we were renting out the spare bedroom and spare bathroom. So when we got there, or before we got there, they called and said, okay, well, when are you going to get here? We need to make sure that we're home when you arrive. What time do you want breakfast? We kind of talked about that kind of stuff. What time are you coming home tonight? Because, we'll make sure the door's unlocked for you. But, we go to bed around this time if you're going to be in after that. We had to kind of navigate that. So in an odd way, in my, mid 30s or early 30s, I kind of felt like, okay, am I going on vacation and staying with my mom? It was a little odd in that sense. For the most part, we are the travel ourselves, do it ourselves kind of people. So we generally stay at hotels more than we do B&Bs.
I prefer the B&Bs actually. Now, to that, let me touch on the youth hostels first of all. A youth hostel, if you're really trying to do things on a budget, and if you qualify to be in a youth hostel, I mean, they're not necessarily going to be interested in you staying there if you're 50. Although there are some programs I think provide housing for people who are trying to do world hike things, and they are, older people. A youth hostel is kind of like staying in a dormitory, like a college dorm. So it's very much a random encounter, up personal experience. You will run into other students and travelers, doing walkabout from all kinds of different parts of the world. And that can be really, really cool. That can be, you never know who you're going to meet in the common area, basically. Or you might form friendships with people who are from Germany or Scotland or Addis Ababa. And that can be really neat. I know friends who have basically done the youth hostel thing, and they still have friendships with the people that they met staying in those hostels.
It also depends on how social you are as well.
Yeah.
If you're more a stick to yourself kind of person, or wife and husband, than a youth hostel, or even
I'm mostly assuming a couple are not going to be staying in a youth hostel. But as a low bar, I want to mention it because it's a great budget option.
Yeah.
There are some B&Bs which will feel kind of like that. There are some B&Bs where the people have basically turned a townhouse or something into something like a micro hotel, where they have several rooms upstairs that they've turned into very makeshift, very bare bones kind of hotel rooms, and they've turned that. And this is actually a memory because one place we stayed in London, it was a B&B, but it was basically like a townhouse hotel, and the upper stories had little bedrooms, and then they had turned the basement level into a larger kitchen, where they served you the classic English breakfast.
Yeah.
So that was cool, but it was also kind of meh aesthetically. But for a very affordable urban stay, it was good. The B&Bs, which I enjoyed the most, and always will, is actually, like you're saying, where it's a couple who have opened up their home, and they tend to be very social people. They really want to have company. They want to have guests. They want to hear your stories, and you should allow some time for that because in exchange of you telling them some of your life story, they're going to tell you things about the history of the local area or places you should go. Our favorite B&B, when we went, there were sheep right outside the cottage. It was literally a thatched roof cottage, and we were woken up in the morning by sheep bleating. And they sound like people pretending to be sheep. That's
bleating, not bleeding.
Bleating. No, bleeding. Yeah, that was...
Slaughtering sheep outside our door.
It's
that was
slaughter time here. For an extra fee, you can help. Here's a complimentary butcher knife. No, no, seriously, it was kind of funny because we had never heard actual sheep before. So we hear this noise. It sounds like people pretending to be sheep. It's like, wow, sheep sound like people pretending to be sheep. They're like, mah, mah, and that's actually what they sound like. It was just kind of surreal. But these people pointed this towards the local pub. They told us the shortcuts to get places, and it was just a genuinely just a genuinely really friendly, homey experience. The one thing we haven't touched on, which is kind of an interesting new dynamic that splits the difference, of course, is Airbnbs.
Yes.
I've never personally used an Airbnb, so I can't give you any insight on them. But a lot of people swear by them anymore.
Yeah. When we went to Ireland, Kelly and I went to Ireland, we stayed at, it wasn't an Airbnb, but it kind of ish was. It was like it was in County Clare. There was like 6 or 8 little like out in the middle of nowhere, long dirt road to get to the place, and there was like 6 or 8 little houses in like with a shared parking lot in the middle, with cows around, all that kind of stuff, like way out in the middle of nowhere.
Nice.
So it was kind of Airbnb-esque, where we actually had to meet the owner there to give us the key, and since we usually go in the winter, it was literally we were the only people there. So which is cool because it's very, very dark, very quiet, not a lot going on.
Yeah.
It was scary because we were the only people there. If something went wrong, good luck.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
if you survive, you have good stories to tell your kids.
If she was going to kill me, that would have been the place to do it.
Yes, get all Agatha Christie on you. Yeah,
Exactly.
Cool. I had a thought, and I think I almost lost it. Back in my day when I was doing this, we made good advantage of the book a bed ahead service. Now, of course, I'm sure there's digital versions of doing that, and I'm sure Airbnb has similar functions. But you can literally not be sure, assuming you're doing a self-drive kind of a vacation, you can be entirely unsure where you're going to end up by the end of the day if you want, and just randomly drop a coin and say, we're going to go left and head towards that town, and you phone up using a directory that's provided, and they will tell you where all the B&Bs are in that area, and you can just literally call and say, hey, you got a free room? And you will find one. It might take a couple of phone calls, or in this day and age, probably web service stuff, but you'll find a berth somewhere, and it's incredibly liberating. You can basically just go to any town you want and just stop where you're ready. So.
See, for me, I'm much more regimented and planned. That would drive me nuts, not knowing where I'm going to be that night. I'm the exact opposite. I need to know ahead of time. I have a room in this hotel because my mind would go to I really don't want to sleep in the back of the car, and if I can't find anything, that's what's going to happen.
I think chances are you will find stuff though. And
yes, but that doesn't, quell my
okay.
my OCD about it.
I can't do anything about your anxiety there. May I suggest a package tour?
Yes, indeed.
Okay.
And some more drinks.
It's know yourself before you travel is kind of I think the takeaway from this. And
absolutely.
Mapping out the places that are most important to you to go on the trip will help you either choose the loose options I'm talking about, or the more structured options that Rocky is
Yeah.
mentioning.
Or even not necessarily structured, but to your point about if you have a hotel, you stay at you pick a hotel that is within driving distance of multiple things. So the first time we went across, we stayed in Sussex, and we could go to Glasgow, we could go to Edinburgh, like we could go to Fort William and take day trips within an hour or so drive of where we wanted to stay.
Yeah.
So picking a centrally located hotel is part of a good plan for this kind of stuff.
And that really dovetails right into point number 7.
Point number 7, plan ahead. Figure out where you want to go. If, again, all these are kind of based on if you want to do the thing yourself and kind of tour yourself. Figure out the places you want to see, the things that are important to you, and those kind of things well in advance. The one thing that sticks out the most in my mind is tourist season, meaning late spring through early fall.
Yeah.
The places you want to see, odds are other people are going to want to see them as well. So it's going to be packed. One of the advantages to going in winter when there's trade shows that Kelly and I go to is that there's no crowds. When we went to Culloden, we were on the Culloden battlefield and at the visitor center. It was a brand new visitor center at the time. And there was literally a dozen or 20 people there that we saw the entire time outside of the staff. So it was a much more moving experience in that way because it was a lot less people there. I can't imagine, screaming kids running around with fake swords, causing a ruckus when I'm there trying to take in and soak in the history of it and the importance of that place.
Right.
Same kind of thing with when we went to Stonehenge one time. We got there earlier in the day and there wasn't a lot of people there, and it left a bigger imprint on me than if I would have been there with, a bunch of people running around talking and tour groups cycling through. It's a more,
Timing is key.
Yeah.
I think timing is key. And even the time of year that you decide to do the trip can be important for other natural factors. I mean, off-season is a great strategic way to go, but it will be cold. It will be winter. On the other hand, Scotland is one of the most beautiful countries on earth, we know. And the winter landscapes can be as beautiful as the summer landscapes. But you won't have heather blooming then, so you may not have the photo ops that you were thinking you're going to have. On the other hand, you might also not have the midges, which if you decide to go in the height of summer, is something you need to be prepared for also. There's always going to be some kind of environmental factors, as well as the human factors, for planning when you go. And to touch on the weather briefly.
and explain what midges are, too, for people who don't know.
Midges are basically like these small black flies that attack you in swarms, kind of like mosquitoes do.
Or gnats.
Yeah, they're basically very, very nasty little guys, and you'll have welts and lots and lots of bites, multiple bites. So bug spray is good at certain times of year.
Yeah.
I
I can't imagine wearing a kilt and, regimental and having midges swarm me. I think I would be traumatized.
Possibly.
I don't even want to think about
There's
it. Anymore.
but there's certain things. No matter when you go, in terms of planning ahead, you'll want to give a thought to your gear, whether you're doing a package tour or self-drive or whatever. Be prepared for the weather.
Yeah.
Especially it rains very often, and the weather can change very quickly. So a rain jacket is going to be great. Even if you're doing a totally urban experience in Edinburgh, you're probably going to want a few good pairs of really good padded hiking socks. You're going to have a really good pair of hiking boots. You're going to be doing a lot of walking no matter what kind of trip you take.
Yeah.
So it's little things like that. You had mentioned at one point little things like adapters for your electronics.
Yeah.
Can be important.
Yep. Cell phone adapters and little adapters because the plugs are different and that kind of thing. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. So a checklist of gear you want is going to be one of the things to include when you're doing the planning stage of the trip.
Yep.
Yeah.
That leads us to number 6 on our countdown. Driving. Things to consider when you're driving. Yes, they drive on the opposite side of the road. I'm not saying the wrong side of the road. I'm saying the opposite side of the road. That does take a bit of getting used to. Did you drive when you were over there?
I'll let my wife do most of the driving, actually, yeah.
Fair enough.
Yep.
I remember my first experience driving, I just kept thinking, okay, it's the other side of the road, other side of the road, other side of the road. And I went on my first roundabout in Scotland and got off going down the wrong direction down a highway. Kelly screamed. I pulled over onto the other side. That was the last time I made that mistake. It was almost the last time I made that mistake. But the things to remember are you're going to be riding on the opposite side of the road. It takes a little bit of getting used to, but if you're easily adaptable to things and adaptable to your environment, it shouldn't take long before you start just doing it kind of automatically. You get in the opposite side of the car. If you're going to drive a stick shift, you do drive stick on the opposite side. I remember I rented a stick shift one time just because I wanted to see how it was. I wanted the experience of driving a stick on the wrong side of the road, the opposite side of the road, opposite side of the car. And then I remember landing in the plane thinking to myself, oh crap, is it 1, 2, 3, 4? Or is that backwards
There's that mirror
too?
image also. Yeah.
Is the gas pedal still on the right, or is and the clutch on the left, or vice versa? So luckily, the gas pedal is still on the right and the clutch is on the left.
Yep.
It's not a mirror image, but you do shift with your left hand. So it took a little bit of getting used to for that, but I figured that out real quick.
Good.
But it was fun just to have a different vehicle experience over there as well.
Yeah, I think there's that. The roads, on the other hand, take more getting used to.
Yes.
Their sense of a highway or a main thoroughfare is not the same as ours.
Here in America, we have
Big
large
America.
cars and large roads. In Scotland, the roads are a lot older, and frankly, they're not that wide. No matter, when you're outside of the main highways, like between Edinburgh and Glasgow kind of thing, when you're driving through forests and through, from one town to another, it's the only road from town A to town B.
Yeah.
However, the roads aren't that much wider than a driveway. Like, 2 cars can kind of pass. I remember there was a couple times where, our mirrors clipped with another car going past, and it's just something that happens.
They're smaller cars too, but
yes. But there's oftentimes you'll actually have a pull-off onto the side of the road will get wider for 50 feet, and if someone's coming at you, you're supposed to pull off, let them go past, and get back onto the road. That's their workaround for narrower roads. It's just, a fact of life. It's kind of what happens. I remember literally laughing, this is a highway when we were over there. But, it's what you got. It's what you deal with.
Right. It's true. Now, I don't think this is a thing up north, but down south we ran into hedgerows where it's basically, that scene in Star Wars where you're going down the trench and you're going to fire the torpedoes? It's like that, except it's green. Because there's a hedgerow here, and a little tiny road, and you're just and we came to a couple of times. We'd come to a corner of hedgerows and intersections, and we're trying to peek our nose out to see past a hedgerow, and a lorry comes by, and you're like, and that was the first time I ever got sweared at in the UK. You're blowing it, blah 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 blah. Sorry, happy motoring.
Yeah, that's something I'll say that's off-putting as well. Is from the driving aspect. Driving on the right side of the car and having traffic whizzing past you this direction.
That's a little weird.
That takes more getting used to, or took more getting used to me than driving on the opposite side of the road. It was the flashes past my head.
And the other drivers. The orientation of the other drivers.
Yeah. Another thing as far as driving goes, roundabouts. They love their roundabouts. So you'll often find, instead of a regular stop sign intersection or traffic light intersection, a roundabout in the middle of nowhere, basically just go reasonably slow and stay to the right. You don't want to go crazy, around the roundabout. If you get to the center, you could find it more difficult to get back to the outside. So, good luck.
I think one of the things that worked for us was our first driving. We made sure we went through some side streets in town. Very slow, just around residential areas, small roundabouts, and basically use that as our little kindergarten of driving before we went out and hit the main roads to go anywhere. Yeah, seriously. I mean, just give yourself a chance to get used to the vehicle and get used to the environment. Once you are used to it, though, the advantages open up dramatically. One of the really most popular things to do right now, tourist-wise, is to hit what's it called? The North Coast 500, which is basically it's a 516 mile. Let me say it again. 516 elocution mile coastal road that goes all up around the northern portion of Scotland. It's slow going at parts, but the landscapes change very dramatically. You get to see the ocean, you get to see the rock formations and everything, and it's easy to hop off it to different destinations up along the coast. Extremely popular thing to do nowadays, and that to me dovetails perfectly with the whole book a bed ahead thing too. Decide just you're gonna aim for doing this section of the road at this day, and then stop around this town for the night, and then keep going the next day. You can really, really get into the landscape that way. So that's the drive. That driving has its advantages. Yeah. Absolutely has its advantages.
Speaking of landscape, is kind of dovetails. The one thing that struck me when we were over there as well is the stark, effectively, boundary between the city and the country in certain areas, like outside Stirling and things like that. It was like city, and then it just stopped, and then it was fields. There wasn't like the suburbs where there was just houses with some more land. It was a very stark difference between the two.
Yeah. So it's gonna affect how you structure your experience.
Yeah,
basically.
absolutely.
Yeah, cool.
Which brings us to number 5 on the countdown.
5.
Historical trips, or excuse me, historical sites or day trips. There are, you can't throw a stone in Scotland without hitting the castle. There is a lot of history there. I mean, the one saying goes, Americans think 200 years is a long time, and the people in the UK think that 200 miles is a long way.
It's a long distance, yeah.
So there's a lot of different historical stuff. And getting back to the tours a little bit, the guided tours, you can do mini guided tours for a day or, just a few hours of your day, as it were.
Yeah, there some locations will have day-long or 2-day-long bus trips where, say, you start in Edinburgh or that area and head out to, like, one of the islands. Okay, like Arran. I saw a video about there's a guy.
Probably Glasgow's on the left side, so.
Okay.
But Edinburgh,
This guy had, I guess, or maybe there's an extension to his particular trip, but he basically did a bus tour which went out to the Isle of Arran, which was like mini Scotland. Once you got on the island, he was able to see standing stones, he was able to see a castle, he was able to visit a distillery. There's a lot of natural beauty, water courses and wildflower areas and rocks to climb. And so he had a whole concentrated experience there. And in between that, he had this bus driver who was filling them with all kinds of stories and anecdotes as they went. So it was a very rich experience. It only took a day and a half to do. So that's one thing you can do. What kind of experiences you want are going to really dictate the kind of activities you engage in. If you stay in Edinburgh, for instance, there will be walking tours. Where there's something for everybody. There's basically
ghost tours.
Yeah,
there's
ghost tours.
hiking.
There's a Harry Potter themed tour apparently. I don't know how that works exactly. No,
you get a broomstick with a Segway shaped like a broomstick, and you play Quidditch.
Yeah, I think it's because there are parts of the movies that I guess were filmed out there. So,
right.
And of course the train. But so there's all kind of themed tours in Edinburgh, which is the huge attraction urbanly and a huge tourist attraction. So they're trying to accommodate you as a tourist. You are a big part of the economy. If you go out of Edinburgh, different historic sites will often have audio tours, which is another self-paced thing you can do, which is really cool. And if you're going to visit historic sites, there's a lot to choose from. There's over 2,000 castles in Scotland.
Really?
Yes, over 2,000.
Where did you get that data from? Just curious.
I was just looking at articles this morning.
Nice.
Yeah. Now, the definition of a castle is going to vary. Yeah. Some of them are medieval fortresses. Some of them are palatial estates from the 18th, 19th century. Some of them are ruins. Like there'll be a pile of rock, and it's like, oh, that's your clan seat. Congratulations. That's all that's left.
Are any of them small Disney princess castles? Those were not counted.
Well, that's on a different tour.
Fair enough. Okay.
Like the Leprechaun Museum in Dublin. There's something for everybody. There's popular. Let's see, where are some of the real big bucket list?
Stirling Castle.
Stirling Castle. Yep.
Urquhart Castle right on Loch Ness is a really nice one.
Right.
Edinburgh Castle, obviously.
Yep.
The Eileen Dunnan castle. There's,
Most photographed castle
Yes.
in the world,
Yep,
perhaps.
it's got
if
the, it's
not
the one
Europe,
with the
or at least Europe.
bridge that leads right over the water to it.
Yeah, you've seen it in movies like in Highlander, in the opening scenes of Highlander, where they're marching across the bridge. That's that castle.
What's the one? Kelly's gonna kill me. It's the one in that is the Stewart of Appin seat that they lost to the Campbells on a bet. It was the
Yeah, I
castle
haven't
that
written
was
about that in
Castle
years.
Arg from Monty Python.
Oh,
and
right,
Holy
right,
Grail.
right.
Castle Stalker. That's
There
what
you
it
go.
is.
Stalker
Yep.
Castle. Yes.
Yep.
I'll edit that so you sound like you knew exactly which one you're referring
Sure,
to.
absolutely.
There's Rosslyn Chapel.
Yep.
I
Yep.
very much would like to see that. There's finding your own clan's seat, like I think we both alluded to, basically, can be a very popular destination for a lot of Americans. Is hunting down where they came from, where they were.
Yeah. There's also we'll touch on Ireland a little bit.
Sure.
There's Cliffs of Moher.
Yep.
There's the islands off the left coast of Ireland or the west coast of Ireland. There's Giant's Causeway.
Yep.
There's the Ring of Kerry. There's a lot of really, really cool stuff.
Mound of Tara.
Yep.
I've
Mount
always
Tara,
wanted
yep.
to see that.
Yep. There's a lot of really cool stuff in both the UK and Ireland.
I think what it comes down to is it's going to be hard to choose.
Yeah.
There will be more to see there than you have time for, and it's good to kind of mentally accept that. The more you try to cram into your trip, the more you're going to feel like you didn't get more than just a quick snapshot of any one thing you were doing. So don't overpack the trip. Try to prioritize what are the most important things you want to see, so that you feel like you've invested the proper amount of time in them. And also, if you go someplace and it turns out it's not all it was cracked up to be, like if you decide to go see the Kelpie statue, with the giant horses.
Yep.
Some people go to that and they think, wow, this is an incredibly cool piece of modern art. This is amazing. This is beautiful. Other people go there and they see a big
Waste of metal.
big pile of scrap iron. So I think it's cool, but
Yeah.
I don't. But with all the other choices I would have going, that's not one of the things I'd want to see. Personally, doesn't
Agreed.
really appeal to me in that sense. If it was on my way somewhere, I would certainly stop off and take a look at it.
Yeah, I'll agree with you on that.
But it's kind of like an interesting point in the landscape, not a
It's
destination for me.
Yeah, it's a half-hour stop, not a full day explore
Yeah.
the Kelpies.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And that's an important thing to think about also is basically when you go to a destination, a lot of them you will be able to explore kind of on your own, which warrants you that you be respectful of the space. Don't do anything stupid while you're there, and don't abuse your
Carve your name in the wall.
yeah, like my ancestors did. Sven was here. No, but seriously, there'll be a lot of times where you can basically explore at your own pace, and there really isn't the restrictions on touching things
Yeah.
or exploring the site. At the same time, there will be some sites that have the opposite, where there's so many people, like Edinburgh Castle. There's so many people visiting that you have to expect to stand in line. You have to expect to be, guided like sheep through different areas because they have to control the crowds. So,
Yeah, and I will say this: it's different than over there for the most part than it is here. And the one thing that kind of struck me was when we went to Stirling Castle. You just okay, here's your ticket, just go explore.
Yeah, have fun,
And
kids.
You run around and you can literally touch anything for the most part.
Yeah.
We went to there's not a ton of like roped off areas and that kind of things.
Yeah.
Now that being said, when we were in England, the one I forget where we were. It was somewhere, again, Kelly's going to kill me. It was somewhere she really, really wanted to go. She's the history nut. And we were in some queen's, summer home or something. I don't know.
Okay.
And it was
Okay.
off season. It was January.
Okay.
And we went, and there was literally one other couple on the guided tour. And they actually said, we talked to the docent, and he was just like, hey, Kelly was asking him questions.
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, hey, you seem really interested in this stuff. She's like, yeah, I love all of it. I love seeing the clothes. I love the history. I love seeing the tapestries and the paintings. And he was like, well, the area over here is being refurbished, but follow me. So he took us up back staircases and things like that to get to areas where you couldn't otherwise see, and showed us really, really cool stuff you couldn't otherwise see.
Yep.
So just that angle of it, getting to talk to somebody and kind of, if you express interest, as you've said before,
Yeah.
if you express interest in what they're doing and what they're expressing interest in, they may kind of show you some cool stuff that you wouldn't get to see otherwise.
Yeah, it's basically just like we'll always say, talk to the locals and get the locals' feed on things. That applies to the guy who's checking you in at the hotel, to the person that you meet in the grocery store, to the docents. You know, some friendliness and some respect, and you will find them very friendly people. They're incredibly friendly, very gregarious people. Can get you a lot of cool little advantages. My wife, when we were in London, she's a textile nerd, serious textile nerd. We spent not 1 but 2 days at the Victoria Albert Museum, and part of the result of that was that she got to talk to a couple of docents and then one of the curators. And they said, if you come back tomorrow at 3 o'clock, we'll let you into this collections room and let you see this collection. And she got to basically handle these pieces of fabric and stuff, these extant samples of embroidery and things, because she'd been nice to people. And they recognized that she was, as we always say, a sincere student of the culture. It goes a long way. It really
Absolutely.
does. Yeah.
That leads us to number 4.
Yep.
Ask
locals.
The locals. Whether you're staying at a B&B, whether you're staying at a hotel where there's a maitre d' down front, whether you're going to the grocery store and you just strike up a conversation, ask the locals where they go to the pub, where the best music scene is for that town, where the best place to go shopping is. Ask the locals what they do. You want to have an authentic experience, that's who you need to ask. Don't go to the tour guides and that kind of thing. They're going to show you the historical stuff. But the locals are the ones who've lived there, who know all the secrets and all the little tips and all the places to go.
Mm-hmm. And very often they'll be curious about you, and they will be happy to share some of these things with you because there's a pride. It's been said that Scots are very proud people and also kind of self-deprecating. So they really appreciate when you are sincerely interested in their culture and in their country. So you can really make some friends.
Yeah, Ireland as well, not just Scotland.
Yeah, absolutely. And they do like to drink. So you may be able to make friends in that pub, just by buying somebody around.
Yeah.
It actually happens.
The one story that comes to mind, when Kelly and I were in Ireland, we were looking for a particular abbey with a particular high cross that she wanted to go see, and we were going to take pictures of. And it was in the middle of nowhere in Clare on the west coast somewhere. And I remember we were in a grocery store and talking to the clerk and just trying to ask him where it was exactly. We knew we were within a couple miles of it, but we didn't know exactly where it was. And he was trying to explain it to us. He was obviously working at the time, but he was saying, okay, well, you make a left out of here, you go down for, a mile and a half, then you make a right. There's this color house in the corner, then you go down, it's a dirt road, and you got to go around the corner here. And he was just, kind of giving us directions. My brain was swimming.
Right.
And there was a local guy standing in line with us, and he said, he heard our accents. He knew that we were tourists, and he just said, what are you looking for? And we said that, the name of the abbey, and he's just like, I know where it is. Just follow me. I'll take you there. It's kind of on my way. Don't worry about it. So just because we were nice and struck up a conversation with them, they literally, we paid for our stuff, bought the guy a coffee or something, and he jumped in his truck, and basically we just followed him 2-3 miles down the road, down dirt roads, down the middle of nowhere, which we never would have otherwise found. Mm-hmm. And he basically just stopped, got out and said, okay, this is where it is. Here's some really cool stuff about it. Gave us a mini history lesson.
Nice.
And I said, okay, to get back out on the road, go down there, make a left, you're back out on the main road. And it was a really, really cool experience that we would have completely missed except for the locals and talking to the locals and having that experience with them.
Yeah, and giving them a chance to be proud and to show off.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think everybody appreciates that to some extent, but over there especially. And that's something you will not get with that package tour. You may have some very, very friendly people who are honestly being paid to be friendly with you, because they're your paid guide, your paid driver, but it's not quite the same level of intimacy as you can get with befriending locals and just striking up a random conversation here and there. As long as you're not overbearing. You want to ask them questions and you want to listen to their questions, but you want to gauge things too. You don't want to, if they're obviously in the middle of working or something. You don't want to interrupt them. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You don't want to be that guy. or assume that they want to hear all about your clan or about your life story, about how your grandfather came over, on the boat, blah blah blah. There'll be times for those stories, but not every encounter is going to be a good time for those kinds of things.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
Yeah, gauge how the conversations are going. Yeah, I think that's covers that pretty well.
Yeah. So, number 3 on our countdown, food and restaurants. Where is the best place to go to eat? How do you take in the local cuisine? Not just the McDonald's in Edinburgh, but the actual place that serves real haggis or real deep-fried Mars bars. It kind of dovetails with the last one. Ask the locals. So you need to know when you go over there, are you adventurous with your food? Do you really want to try what the locals eat now, or do you want to just stick to, blah kind of, McDonald's type cuisine?
Ugh, keep saying McDonald's.
Well,
Although
I'm hungry.
yeah,
Not for
maybe
McDonald's, though.
you want something to go with your cough drops? They're going to tell you. They can tell you everything from the high end stuff to the local day to day stuff. There's so many different varieties of dining experience you can have. Don't think that you have to aim at every single meal being this super exotic or super special experience like the best restaurant or the best bar or whatever, the best pub. There's going to be very mundane micro experiences you can have. My wife and I, we were doing the self-drive thing, and we would basically go into a grocery store. First of all, let me backtrack a little bit. We would always take advantage of the complimentary breakfast at the B&Bs.
Yes.
Always eat.
Or hotel.
Yeah. Eat as much food as you can. Get all that fuel into your system, all the carbs, all the protein, all the beans, all the tomatoes, all the haggis, whatever, all the black pudding you can, because
food is expensive.
Food can be expensive, and if you were like us, we didn't have a lot of money, so we were basically fueling for the day, and they're fine with that.
Yeah.
But the other thing we would do was then we would hit a grocery store or similar, and we'd try and find things like snack foods or candies or things like that, which we wouldn't have in America. We try little things that are pop culture, not just traditional, but what is currently a popular thing. Where do you go to get a curry? Ever since the Raj, India has had a huge influence on British culture, and you'll find lots of restaurants and places that offer curries. A curry, basically somewhat anglicized Indian food, which is really delicious. So you're going to get tips on that.
And that's about, just to interject quickly.
Sure.
Curry over there is about, think of it for us Americans. Think of it as about as popular as Chinese restaurants are here in America.
Yeah.
Curry is in the UK.
Yep. And then, of course, there's munchie boxes, too.
Yep.
If you really need to fuel up, you can always order a munchie box, which is basically kind of like a pizza box filled with all kinds of stuff.
Deep fried, horrible for you
Deep fried
food.
everything.
Yep.
Yeah. You're going to have some experiences food-wise which may not be ideal. One of the memories food-wise that sticks out in my mind from our trip was this shrimp paste we bought in a grocery store. And we were sitting, Max laughing over here, and we were basically having our picnic lunch at this castle we were visiting, and we just basically sat in the parking lot and spread out a cloth, and we just were making sandwiches with all the stuff we got in the grocery store. And this is like this shrimp paste. We were like, never seen that before. Let's try that. That sounds good.
No.
Wasn't good.
No, it doesn't.
It was not good.
I'm just thinking like peanut butter consistency of ground up shrimp.
Yeah, that's about right. It was not ideal.
See, I'm not daring with food.
Okay.
So I don't like seafood, and I'm not daring with food. I've never tried shrimp paste. That's just, that hurts me to think about.
It just broke it. Can I offer you a package tour? But there's also things like pubs will have lunches sometimes that are nice. Like a plowman's lunch is great, and another great way to fuel up and very rustic food. I mean, literally, cheese and bread and stuff. And tea rooms. Tea rooms are good.
The one thing I'll point out about restaurants is that this is against our nature as Americans. You don't tip. It feels weird every time I go over there, but you don't tip. If you're going to the bar, you order a drink, you don't leave money on the bar. You take your drink, you take your change, you go away. If you're going to a restaurant, you pay for your food, and then you go away. You don't tip. Now, oftentimes, what will actually happen is the servers in the UK. Now, I when I was in college, I was a server. I was a busboy. I was a bar back. I've done a lot of jobs in the service industry where you actually, make your money on tips. So to me, it is against my very nature not to tip. That being said, over there, when they hear your accent as a waiter, they know that you might not know that you're not supposed to tip. So they're going to be extra special nice to you because they're going to want a tip, although it is not expected. You're not really supposed to tip for the most part in the UK.
Americans tip could be something that they've just
Yeah,
been programmed to
absolutely.
expect. Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
They see Americans. Ooh, he might tip me. I'm going to be nicer to him. But generally, it's a not a high paying job, but it's still higher paid because it's kind of built in. It's the tipping isn't part of the thing.
But are you insulting? Should you tip anyway? Then I mean, if you want, you made it sound like you should tip.
No,
almost.
if you want to, have at it. Nothing is stopping you from giving another human being more money than you're required to give them.
Okay.
But it is not really expected. I remember being at this really, really cool bar in Glasgow. My friend Andrew took me there, a little bar called the Bon Accord. A really neat hole in the wall. They have a ton of different whiskeys. And I went to buy the round, and he came up to the bar to help me collect the glasses. And I put down money, and he grabbed it off the bar and said, "You don't tip here." And I'm like, "But he's a cool guy." And he's just like, "No, you don't tip in Scotland. Knock it off. Get back to the table." So he literally took my money away from me, put it in my pocket, and threw it at the table.
Saved you from a social faux pas.
Yes.
Basically.
It's not really I don't know if it's a faux pas. Not to the bartender, it's not a faux pas.
The bartender's like, "Hey."
It's a faux plus.
Oh, I accept tips.
Yes.
Nobody else in this country does, but I accept them.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So that'll lead us to our number 2. Be a good ambassador.
Yep.
Period. No matter where you go, you are an ambassador of your country, your people, whatever those people may be, to the people who you are visiting. Mm-hmm. So if you are an American visiting Scotland, be a good ambassador of America to Scotland.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And that's going to come out in little things that you do and little things you don't do. Like we were saying, you don't want to bore people with conversation, or you don't want to make assumptions about their time or their ability to help you with a problem you're having. Just treat them in a civil manner, and try not to be intrusive or overbearing as you would with anybody, really.
Yeah. A lot of times we, as Americans, think about it this way. There's 2 Scotlands. There is the historical, romanticized Scotland that we think about through Outlander and through Braveheart and Rob Roy and Robert the Bruce movies and everything like that. There is that Scotland, and it exists, and it is steeped in history and culture.
Yep.
There is also current Scotland that has thriving businesses. They actually use computers, not just pigeons. It's there. It is a country where people live, and business is done.
Right.
So it's not stood still in time, although we have this kind of romanticized view of it.
Right.
So when you go over there and want to talk all history all the time, the people that live there, who've lived there their entire lives, may not share the same love of history, just like, America. Some Americans don't love history as much as you do, and may not know or want to hear about your entire family backstory. Although it's important to you and it's important to us, it may not be important to, John Calhoun. I'm thinking Joe Smith. John Calhoun over in Scotland. So just be, as Erik was saying, be respectful of people's times and kind of take social cues. If they're kind of like, yep, okay, yeah, I know you're related to Robert the Bruce. All right, I got it. Then just understand that, they're humans just like we are.
Yeah.
I guess they're human. Yeah, they're humans. No,
I'm
they're
totally
people just like
that
us.
out.
Absolutely, we'll edit the heck out of this video. But they're humans in the same way.
And they got things to do.
Yeah.
They got lives. A lot of Scottish people, for instance, don't really know or acknowledge what clan they're a member of.
Yeah.
Or if you ask them about their tartan, or if you say, "Oh, you're a Calhoun, I love your tartan," they'll be like, "Sure." They don't necessarily dive into that historical culture the way we as people in the diaspora do.
Yeah.
And so you want to make sure that you're being respectful, and you don't want to embarrass them. Occasionally, and this happens in other countries too, by the way, where someone who's really passionate about the history and culture of a country will really dive into it, and then they go to that country and they meet people who are just trying to get on with their lives. They're just working and dealing with modern life, and they have other interests. Maybe they're into football or something like that, but they're not interested in history. And if you ask them all these questions and you're expecting them to be able to respond, it can actually be embarrassing for them. You're kind of like, wow, I don't know my own culture as well as this Yankee does. And that can be a weird space you don't want to get into. So
I'll draw a parallel to that exact point. If somebody came up to me or you as Americans and with a Scottish accent or an Indian accent or whatever, and was like, your government is amazing. The fact that you have 3 houses and this and this and this and the Constitution, and went and started reciting the Constitution and the houses and legislature and all this kind of stuff and different state levels. And they just started talking circles about all the stuff we learned in social studies in 4th grade. And I can't remember all of it right now.
Right.
I might be like, yeah, that's right. But I may not remember every single detail that the person who's obviously very excited and obviously did a lot of research on their own time because they love it feels.
Right.
It may put me in an awkward position of feeling like I'm a bad American if I don't know, the entire order of all the presidencies and what every single one of their names were, what political party they were, and yada, yada, yada.
Tell me more about Article 17, Rocky. That's my personal favorite. I actually did a whole blog entry on it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you want
to came after Article 16? Which was my favorite, so I'm sorry. We're going to have to not discuss this.
Okay. But there's going to be to put the flip on it, like you just did. There will be certain cliches that some people you may encounter may have, or misconceptions they have about Americans. Like a lot of Scotsmen and people in the UK in general, the only states of the United States they are sure they know are like New York, Texas, and California. And it can be a little challenging for them to grok where you're from. Or they'll ask you geographical questions, like, oh, well, that's nearby San Francisco, right? It's like, no, that's basically 4,000 miles away. Little things like that are going to happen. The trick is avoiding the awkwardness and finding the fun for both you and the person you're talking to. And it's not that hard, really. Just take your time, be patient.
Basically, reverse the roles. If the person was asking you some questions that you didn't understand or know the answers to, how would you feel about it? Just be a good ambassador about the kind of things.
And conversely, you may find some geeks over there who are into the stuff you're into and have been dying to have somebody to talk to about.
Especially the docents, especially the tour guides.
The docents and the guides, or if you find somebody who is, in fact, works around the clan seat. They may know a lot of local history. They may know a lot of history of your clan and be happy to talk about it.
Yeah. Now, that being said, I'm going to kind of take this in a slightly more positive direction.
Sure.
Generally, the most underrated thing is the human being, the human race. There are absolutely some horrible people that, are just, horrible people and jerks. And if you're lying in the street bleeding, they would kick you and steal your wallet. That will happen at some point. But for the majority of humans in general, we're going to bend down. We're going to help the person. We're going to call the cops. We're going to call an ambulance. It's people generally want to be nice. They want to be good humans because they would want the same thing done for them. So if you are a tourist and you're over there and you need help, just ask people. The Irish people, the Scottish people I know and run into all the time, they are genuinely good people. So there's not a whole lot of difference between the Scots and the Irish and Americans in that way. We're all human beings trying to get on, and if I'm there trying to experience their culture, I'm showing respect for their culture, I'm being nice to them, and I have an honest question, or I need some help, chances are if you're down in the tube in London, or if you're needing to use the public transit system, someone will be there to help you. Or even if you just ask some guy standing next to you, hey, does this train go to Edinburgh? And you're not trying to do a fake accent and, pretend you're Scottish. No. We didn't even touch on that. But if you're an honest human trying to, ask honest questions and just being a nice person, they're generally going to be like, sure, they'll help you in the same way you would help them.
Yeah. Yeah, don't put on airs. Don't try to do the whole, I speak your language, fake accent thing, because they'll see right through it in a second. It's the little things like that. Just be genuine, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And you'll get those positive reactions like you were talking about.
Absolutely.
As long as you're genuine, they're going to be genuine back.
Yeah.
So, which I think that's the crux of it.
Yeah.
Are we ready for number one?
We are ready for number one.
Okay.
If you stuck with us this whole time, thank you very much. Please remember to subscribe. Watch this kind of stuff all the time. Anyway, number one. Do you wear a kilt in Scotland?
Yes.
No.
No.
Yes.
Exactly.
It's up to you. Bottom line is, in Scotland, you're not going to see a lot of kilts. If you're in Edinburgh or Glasgow and there's a street performer performing, on bagpipes or something like that, they may be wearing a kilt.
Mm-hmm.
But as daily wear, it is not part of normal life. It's about as part of normal life as you wearing a kilt in Springfield, Illinois. It's not that common. That being said, if you wear a kilt, you're going to either be seen as someone going to a fancy event, because that's generally when they wear them, or an American tourist, or a Canadian tourist, or a German tourist, some kind of tourist. But that's not necessarily a bad thing. If you want to wear a kilt and that gets you in touch with your roots, great. Wear a kilt in Scotland. You're going to be seen as a tourist, but again, it doesn't matter. If you're comfortable wearing the kilt, wear it. Ultimately, the same kind of scenario is going to happen there that happens here. When you're wearing a kilt, someone is going to come up and want to talk to you. People are going to be curious about why you're wearing a kilt. They're going to be curious about your family history. So if you want to have that experience, that, ease of entry for a discussion, the breaking down of barriers where people are going to come up to you and talk to you, wear a kilt when you're over there, and it will happen.
So a kilt can be an icebreaker there, just like it's an icebreaker here.
Absolutely.
Basically. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
So if you're going to wear a kilt in Scotland, you're going to be seen as a tourist, but lean into it. Just be understanding that, people are going to come up to me and talk to me the same way they would in America, and really lean into it and start those discussions and open that dialogue and really go back and forth with where is the best place to go eat? Where is the best, where's the best pub to go to? Where's the best music scene in Glasgow? Where do I want to go for traditional session music in County Clare? Where should I go? Help me, guide me. And you'll be shocked the number of people that will take time to sit there and converse with you and sit there and tell you what they think you should be doing and the things that you need to see while you're in their town.
Yeah. You can make it fun for them.
Absolutely.
Part of it. Yeah. And I think a lot of Scots actually have a lot of appreciation of how much Americans love Scotland. Because again, that whole mixture of pride and self-deprecation, because Scotland has always been an underdog. I mean, you did a whole speech on that a couple years ago about, the concept of the Scottish underdog. And they realize how much we adore them. They really do.
Yeah.
So yeah, you'll have a positive experience. You're not going to see people running around looking like,
Braveheart.
like Braveheart,
Yeah.
or even Prince Charles. I mean, in the kilt and tweeds. There are a few. I think there are a few people, but they're not.
Yeah,
not
they're
the
more
norm.
eccentric. It's not the norm.
Yeah.
But as long as if you're wearing a kilt, if you choose to wear a kilt, as long as you are a sincere student of the culture and you're showing appreciation for both the historical aspects as well as the current day aspects of what they have and what they're doing and just a love of Scotland, how can you be angry at that?
Right. Yeah, I agree completely.
Very good.
Cool.
All right, boys and girls. Thank you for watching our countdown, top 10 places to go in Ireland and the UK. Until next time, Slán Java.
Slán